Okay, had to discontinue the first video because it cuts off at 15 minutes and I went a little overtime. So we left off at decomposition reactions. AB becomes A plus B, and we talked a little bit about separating hydrogen and oxygen in water. The next example of a chemical reaction is what's called single displacement. Okay, in single displacement, a chemical bond, maybe an ionic bond like NaCl, for example, would bond with C, a third thing, and become the C would switch. So you'd go AB plus C, that's on the reactant side, becomes AC plus B on the product side. The example down below here is copper. If it were put in an aqueous solution of silver nitrate, it becomes copper nitrate and silver. Now, if you look down there, there's an example I'm showing you where S, copper is a solid, AQ, aqueous solution. That means it's in a liquid form. It's been dissolved in water. Becomes copper nitrate in an aqueous solution, and then you've got silver. I'm going to show you an example of that chemical reaction.
This demonstration involves one chemical that we have seen before and one that we haven't. The one that we have seen before is copper. Back in Unit 1, when we learned about electricity and magnetism, we used copper a lot. You might not have seen it because it was usually inside of a wire. For this demonstration, I have some copper wire that doesn't have any rubber or plastic insulation on the outside. The chemical that the copper will be mixing with is called silver nitrate. It's a solution, which means that it's a chemical that's in a water-based liquid. And you can see it here. It's clear and colorless, just like water. It's definitely not water, though. This is silver nitrate, and it's actually harmful to touch your skin, which is why I'm wearing these very stylish gloves. Hashtag chemistry, hashtag keep it styling. For this demonstration, I'm just going to take a piece of copper wire that's coiled like this. I'm going to leave it in the silver nitrate for a little while, and then we'll be able to see a change take place, and afterwards we can compare it with the So now this shiny part on the top is the part that was not in the liquid. This dark part on the bottom was in the silver nitrate liquid.
Okay, so that's a chemical reaction between silver nitrate and copper. Okay, that's single displacement. Next thing you'll want to put in your notes is double displacement. Okay, the example, the way I wrote it out, is AB plus CD becomes AD plus CB. So in this case, barium nitrate, and it's added to potassium sulfate. And then the sulfate and the nitrate, the two polyatomic ions, switch to become barium sulfate and potassium nitrate. So here's a double displacement example that's slightly different.
In the double displacement reaction of barium chloride and sodium sulfate, we start out with a colorless solution of sodium sulfate. When we add barium chloride to it, we get the rapid formation of a white precipitate of barium sulfate.
So that's just a different example of a double displacement. So there we go. That's your introduction to chemistry, and here's some questions. Let's see if you can answer them, okay? Number one, these are kind of questions you'll see on our next test. What do you call the chemicals on the left side of a chemical reaction, chemical equation? Number two, what is the symbol that you would use to let someone know that a chemical is in liquid form? Number three, what type of chemical reaction is this? It shows aluminum oxide breaking apart into aluminum and oxygen. And number four, what would you call the first big 2 in silver nitrate there? That 2 right there. And number 5, according to the law of conservation of mass, mass is in a chemical reaction is not gained or lost, but merely blank. What would you say? So pause it if you want to, just so that you can see how you would do, and then I'm just going to give you the answers right now. So if you don't have it answered yet, pause it so that you can test yourself. Here we go. What do you call the chemicals on the left side of a chemical reaction? Those are called the reactants. Okay, the chemicals on the right side of a chemical reaction are the products. Number 2, what is a symbol that you'd use to let someone know that a chemical reaction is in liquid form? You would use parentheses L if it's pure. If it's been watered down, you'd use parentheses AQ. What type of a chemical reaction is this? That is an example of a decomposition. AB becomes A plus B. Number 4, what would you call the first big 2 in 2AgNO3? That is what's called a coefficient. I've not taught that yet, so if you knew that, it's because you've taken some algebra. That's called a coefficient. And the little 3 there is called a subscript, as you guys know. And number 5, according to the law of conservation of mass, mass is in a chemical reaction is not gained or lost, but merely transformed. So there you go.